Am I the asshole for asking my mother and father-in-law to choose between their two daughter-in-laws? Right before I was about to leave for my mother and father-in-law's house, I got a phone call from my husband. Husband was extremely upset and asked me if I had left for his parents yet. I said no, and he told me he needed to make me aware of a situation. A few hours before, his father had called him and shared with him screenshots of a dating app profile containing my name and photos. Before I could say anything, my husband reassured me he knew it was fake. A few things that tipped him off. 1. Screenshots from the profile said less than a mile away when referring to the distance of the user. 2. It was my sister-in-law who found the account. My straight, female, and married sister-in-law just randomly decided to go on Bumble and somehow fell upon my profile even though we live over 100 miles apart. When I got to my mother and father-in-law's house, father-in-law rushed out to talk to me. He told me I have every right to be upset, but asked me to be the bigger person and not cause any more unnecessary drama. Bitch, please. And you, someone did this really terrible thing to you, but don't freak out. When I got to sister-in-law, initially she denied everything, but after about 2 minutes, she couldn't keep her story straight. Instead of apologizing, she just started bawling her eyes out. She blamed the whole thing on pregnancy hormones and tried to play it off as a joke. What? Straight up bullshittery right there. Bullshittery. My mother and father-in-law both pulled me outside to try and get me to calm down. I asked them why they were taking her side, and they told me that there were no sides and they were just trying to keep the peace. After they said that, I lost it and told them that keeping the peace is just an excuse used by enablers. I told them that they had a very important decision to make. If they chose to stand by sister-in-law, they will lose me as a consequence. They told me they were afraid to lose their grandchild, and I responded with, "You're going to lose a set of grandchildren either way. It's either going to be the ones in front of you now or the future grandchildren me and husband will have." My husband and I are on the same page, and we have both agreed to cut contact with his family unless some kind of just consequence for sister-in-law happens. Edit! Background info. Husband is currently 12 months into an 18-month deployment for the military. Edit 2! I feel like I need to clarify the family relations. I am not biologically related to anyone in this post. I am married to my husband, who is biologically related to his brother. Brother-in-law is married to sister-in-law. Father-in-law and mother-in-law have 2 biological sons and 2 daughter-in-laws, myself and the sister-in-law. So she doesn't just not like her. She disliked her enough to create a fake profile on a dating app just to try to get her in trouble for it. What kind of crazy madness? Okay, hang on, back up. She tried to blame it on pregnancy hormones, and pregnancy hormones, I'm sure, can make you do some pretty crazy stuff that is out of normal character for you. I've talked before about when you're pregnant, I imagine it being like Krang from the Ninja Turtles. It's the robot dude with the little brain in his belly who's just controlling everything with the joysticks like that. Like, they aren't completely in control because of pregnancy hormones. I understand that. But I don't think you can blame pregnancy hormones on doing something this elaborate. This was premeditated bullshittery. You can't blame that kind of effort to do something terrible to someone on hormones. You can blame hormones for like lashing out at someone randomly. You can blame hormones for impulses. I don't think that you can blame them for something that took this much time and thought and effort to not just think of, but then to actually do, and then to actually take it to other people and say, "Look what I found." It just doesn't make any sense. The precursor to this, I believe, is the third story that we actually covered with Michelle Holloman in the podcast, and that may or may not be out yet by the time you see this, but you definitely want to see that story. It has to do with a cake. The 2 sister-in-laws butting heads over a cake, basically. OP here baked a cake for the other sister-in-law's kid, and the other sister-in-law reacted very terribly about it, even though it was a beautiful cake. So this is just furthering the drama in that family storyline. Right now, mother-in-law and father-in-law do have a choice to make. It's not a difficult one, but I'm sure it is to them, because for them, it's losing grandchildren over all of this, which is stupid, by the way. Ultimately, kids suffering and not having a relationship with their grandparents because people do stupid shit is just that much dumber. How do people not think this kind of stuff through? How do they not think about the potential impact on not just their lives and not just the lives of who they're doing these things to, but on their children's lives? Their children are going to lose a relationship with grandparents because their mom did something stupid. that was completely uncalled for. Or maybe there's a way to still have that relationship with the kids, but no matter what, it's going to be damaged in some way, even if only 1%. It's damage that would not have happened if their mom, sister-in-law here, not OP, the other sister-in-law, had just decided not to be shitty that day. Am I the asshole for asking my mother and father-in-law to choose between their two daughter-in-laws? I don't think OP is the asshole for asking them to choose, but I do think that there could have been a different question to ask here. I don't think OP asking them to cut her specifically out of their lives was an assholish move. The implication here is that it's not just sister-in-law, it's going to be the whole family that gets cut out. There has to be another way. I don't know what that other way is, but there has to be another way that doesn't affect the children and the grandparents' ability to have a meaningful relationship. There must be some other way to do that. The only one proven guilty in all of this has been the crazy sister-in-law. So if there is a punishment to be had, it should be directed at her and at her alone. The thought of the kids being affected in any way because their mom's crazy sucks. So let's try to find a workaround there. Not the asshole, but I think there's a much better play to be had. I guess that will be episode 3 of the podcast. That will have the precursor story about the cake in it. If that is already out, go watch it if you haven't already. If it is not out yet, then just keep your eye out for it. It's coming.
It's a-coming. More drama with this specific family and them two sister-in-laws. It is a battle.
Am I the asshole for refusing to hand over my phone to my boss to check the message that I sent? My female 26, 3-year-old son got sick and I had to take him into the hospital in the morning. I took an hour off work and texted my boss letting him know why. I arrived to work later and my boss requested to see me in his office. He started questioning me about being late and I told him I already sent him a text telling him why. He said he didn't receive anything, but I assured him that I sent it. He told me to hand over my phone so he could check, but I refused. I asked him to check his phone, but he again denied receiving anything and said there was no point in checking his inbox. He asked that I hand over my phone to see the text that I sent, but I still refused and suggested that I open the text and show it to him because I have private messages with my boyfriend. He refused to let me show him, saying I might be faking it, but I already have the time and date of the text. He got mad and insisted that I hand it over. I declined and said no, this is my privacy, and he does not get to violate it just because he has authority over me. He got more upset and told me to step outside. After making me wait for 30+ minutes, he had his female assistant try to convince me to let him have a quick look, but I refused. The argument escalated, and I was told to go home till this is figured out. My boss is angry with me, and his assistant is claiming that it was such a weird hill to die on, and if I truly did send it to him, then I should just let him have a look. Am I the asshole? I mean, I offered him an alternative way to see the text, but he insisted on checking it himself. I'm an extremely private person, and the thought of him peeking at private, vulnerable conversations with my boyfriend makes me uncomfortable. My boyfriend thinks I should have just given it to him without making a scene. I don't know where OP geographically is. I'm sure there's some kind of employee protection law that prevents her from having to hand that phone over, and at this point, it's probably an attorney conversation. There needs to be a conversation with someone of legal counsel so that whatever protection exists there can be enforced. I'm a boss. I have employees, and I can't see myself ever asking them to hand over their phones. Now, if it is a business-owned device, sure, they have every right to do that. If it is not a business-owned device, they have no right to do that. It is private property, even if it's on the premises of the business. Now, the expectations for privacy while on premises are different, I believe, than when off premises. That does not mean that you have to hand over your phone and let them see private, vulnerable, perhaps even risque messages. There's got to be some kind of legal protection here, and I hesitate to speculate any further on it because right now it's a legal matter. Right now it is purely a legal matter. This feels like the equivalent of your boss asking you to hand over your diary. There's absolutely no way in hell that would be allowed. And you have to have some kind of protection from that question ever being asked in the first place. And the fact that he persisted as many times as he did means that you probably have a stronger case to be able to enforce some kind of protection here. Let's ignore the legal side of it for now to just look at the human side of it. Even then, no, you're not the asshole. It doesn't matter if someone has authority over you. You offered an alternative path, and the only part of his viewpoint that I understand here is wanting some kind of proof that the message was sent. And even that that seems like a very corporate structure. I mean, with the small team that we have here, it's much more relaxed and much more of a family atmosphere. So, there would be a much more relaxed conversation about it. In a very corporate structured world, they may want some kind of proof if that message didn't come through, but they would never ask you to hand over your device. I cannot see that happening. Dude seems like a control freak dick.
I will not hand over my love letters to my betrothed so that you can just read them while you say you are looking for something else. I will not do that. Who did these letters come from, John? Who sent them? Who's that harlot writing my husband?
You wrote those letters, Moira.
I think I would remember that.
Totally unrelated, but recently saw that episode, so.
Sorry.
No, you're not the asshole. Sorry you had to go through that. Talk to an attorney.
Right? Meow.
Am I the asshole for refusing to take a gift back when it was disrespectfully taken off me?
Was it a dress?
To begin, I'd say I love wearing scarves in my hair, but my new boyfriend is not that kind who gives gifts at all. Wait, your new boyfriend doesn't give you gifts like ever? Like ever? Okay. It was odd when he randomly showed up at my place with a scarf, though nothing to complain about. The scarf had some stains on it, but it was very beautiful.
Well, he brought you a...
Oh, so homeboy's so bad at giving gifts that either he just doesn't do it or he brings you a stained scarf? This seems sus. I washed it, and it immediately became my favorite. Fast forward to a few days, I went to his parents' place to discuss our wedding.
Wait, they're getting married? And homeboy's never brought her a gift except for this stained scarf? Something ain't right.
I noticed his sister was heavily focused on the scarf. Then suddenly she got up, walked towards me, and tried pulling it off me, saying if I really wanted her scarf, I could have asked her instead of stealing it. Now it all makes sense. Sort of. Half of it makes sense. I was shocked and confused and told her that my boyfriend gave it to me, but she refused to listen and kept calling me a liar. She even said that she recognized it because it had the nail polish stains she once dropped on it. I took it off, threw it at her, and left before my boyfriend joined us. He later called me asking where I was, and I told him I got home. When he returned, we got into a huge fight. I may be the asshole as I didn't give him a chance to explain. He said that he'd bring the scarf back, but I told him I don't want it anymore. He said that I was being unreasonable over a little misunderstanding. So am I the asshole for refusing to take it back and not talking to my boyfriend anymore? Edit. I didn't add the necessary information in the original post. He told me that it was actually his mom's, that she gave it to his sister. That was years ago. She didn't even wear it. In fact, he found it in the storeroom and thought he should give it to me instead of it being thrown away. Okay, so that's what OP's boyfriend told OP, which it's not boyfriend, it's fiance at this point. They were discussing a freaking wedding. That's what he told her after the fact. So after all the drama and after she told him what had happened, that's when he said, it was actually my mom's. She gave it to my sister. I found it in the storeroom. It wasn't even being worn. We do not know if that is true or not. We have no idea. This could all be honest misunderstanding. It could seriously be OP's boyfriend / fiance, which her not calling him a fiance is a red flag. Also, homeboy never giving her a gift is a red flag. Maybe that's a cultural thing. I don't know, but it don't feel right. And for the first gift he gives her to be a stained scarf that belonged to his mom and then sister, there's lots of red flags happening here, but it could honestly be just a genuine misunderstanding. This could be. Sister could have thought she still had it hanging in her closet. She might have forgot that it was hanging in the storeroom, so when she saw it, she could have gotten all blood boiling, but OP's fiance, sister, is definitely the asshole because instead of saying, hey, where did you get that scarf? She didn't even ask. She just marched over and tried to rip it off of her. Wow. Can you imagine someone sitting across from you seeing something on you that they thought belonged to them and just walking over and just ripping it off you? That's pretty messed up. I mean, it's an equal level of messed up as like Monica sticking her head between the housekeeper's legs because she was convinced that she had stolen her jeans and there was a stain somewhere that she was trying to see. OP's fiance's sister should have asked. She's the big asshole here. You're not the asshole. I think what you can do is demand that boyfriend clear this all up. And if it really is just a misunderstanding, that should be pretty easy to do. Best case scenario, it's a misunderstanding that's easy to clear up, but his sister is still an asshole. And if anything, she needs to apologize for acting the way that she did. That's it. That would be a path that would mend all fences and you could continue moving forward. We won't even talk about fixing the whole situation with him never giving gifts unless they're shitty stained scarves that are going to cause fights. Maybe there's a reason he doesn't give gifts. If this is the kind of thing that happens every time he does give someone a gift, maybe he shouldn't. Maybe there's a reason he doesn't. It's kind of all making sense now. Maybe he's just a really bad gift giver, so he gave up. Maybe he's like Johnny Rose, and he gave one too many makeup cases to people. His gifts have a way of offending people and causing drama. Maybe he was right to stop. Of course, this is all speculation. That's all we can do, but it's fun. Am I the asshole for calling my sister's wedding a knockoff of my own?
This one's gonna be spicy.
I've always been the favorite among my siblings. As the baby of the family and the only boy, I got doted on a little extra. The extra doting increased when I expressed an interest in dance and actually discovered a talent for it. This makes sense in my mind. My schedule required more time and money devoted to it, since I now had to be taken to classes and showcases, needed the proper attire, etc. There were a few years of tension between my sisters and I, especially during our teen years, where it seemed like they blamed me for what was going on, or expected me to apologize for our parents' choices, something I adamantly refused to do. Tensions seemed to ease some when we went our separate ways. My sisters stuck around in our hometown to get jobs while I moved to a city about an hour away for college. I met my now husband there, and despite what my parents tried to talk us into, we got married in a tiny ceremony at a local courthouse where only immediate family was present. We had a party with our close friends and family later to celebrate, but the ceremony itself was just like we wanted. A small part of an intimate and peaceful day focused on my partner and I. My oldest sister got engaged a couple of months ago, and my parents jumped at the chance to start planning an over-the-top wedding. I've been around for some of it, and a lot of what is being offered to the new happy couple is what was suggested to my husband and I when they were trying to convince us to have a big wedding. That didn't bother me at all. In fact, I was happy my sister was getting what seemed like the wedding of her dreams. Unfortunately, it seems she's still holding a grudge over what happened when we were kids and has made multiple jokes about how she's the favorite now and that this is payback for all the things she missed out on when I was being chauffeured to dance practice. I took the first few in stride, but it's getting tired now that it's been repeated so many times. I recently told her the jokes were getting old, but that still didn't stop her. I finally had enough last night, and after a few drinks at a little weekend family get-together, I told her that her wedding was essentially a knockoff of mine, and that I doubted our parents would be putting this much effort in had I gone through with the extravagant plans that they had wanted me to a few years ago. She left the room in tears, and I've gotten mixed reactions from family over what I said. Am I the asshole? ETA, which means edited to add. I have no interest in special attention from my parents and moved on from the feud with my sisters years ago, as I thought they had as well. I live a good distance from them, all with a life of my own, and can only make it back to visit a few times a year. This doesn't stem from me craving attention. I'm glad my sister is getting all of it, as my parents have a tendency to hover, even all these years later. My complaint is in the repeated jokes despite my request that they stop.
Oh, I am completely convinced that this OP does not crave attention. Not a bit.
Literally everything about this OP screams, show me attention. The fact that he moved away and had a small intimate wedding doesn't negate any of that. Dude's a diva, and that's fine. That's just who he is. Parents kind of made him that way. But dude is also extremely immature with the feuding between the siblings, and as are the siblings. And maybe that's just a sibling thing. Maybe when siblings feud, they just kind of revert back to those ages that they were when they were having original feuds, and they turn into just bickering kids again. My siblings and I don't really fight. I mean, we text. We don't fight. At least I don't think so. I could be involved in a bunch of fights that I don't even know I'm in right now. That's how I roll. But no, we don't. We don't fight like that. I did shitty stuff when I was a kid to them, and I'm sorry. Sorry, sisters. I'm the only boy and I'm the middle child. It explains a lot. I kind of think everybody's an asshole here. OP is the asshole because they couldn't just be the bigger person and just let it slide. He finally gave in. I say finally, it probably took 30 seconds. He couldn't help but take a jab. Granted, he was baited into it, but he didn't show any restraint. He said that he told her the jokes were getting old. We don't know how long that went on for. It could have been 30 seconds. Like, okay, it's getting old. And the whole vibe here is kind of shitty diva. And the whole vibe of the sisters hating on the shitty diva vibe is also an asshole-ish vibe. So we have another asshole family tree here. I need to go back and review what those ASCON levels were and actually like map them out on here. I don't have them mapped out yet, but I need to. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing here though, so let me know what you think. Also, if you watched the ASCON levels video, let me know what level you think OP is on here.